Now we are going to discuss barriers blocking communication. One of the barriers that block communication is culture. We can see this in the instance with the veteran, where she views herself and is direct with other employees, and then gets in trouble, and she uses defense silence and just chooses not to communicate. The next one is insufficient job instructions. We can see this in the instance of there was another employee that I interviewed, and we took a look at her job description, and the job description was just very vague, and didn't really state completely what she should be doing on a daily basis. Um, Next is policies and procedures. Policies and procedures are another way that management can communicate with their employees on what they should be doing on a daily basis. Um, policies and procedures are a way for employees to be guided. And when there's no guidance, because they're lacking policies and procedures, employees aren't productive, and it causes a communication barrier between management and them.
Okay, now we're going to discuss some of the limitations of our research process and methodologies that we used. First, qualitative data is highly subjective. And because of this, it can slightly alter the data due to individual perspectives and biases. So that can have an impact on the quality of the data, and it can also lead to other researchers and individuals questioning the data that was collected. My perspective will be different than Ms. Pollin's. Our perspective would be different than other researchers' perspectives. So it does play a factor in how the data is perceived and analyzed and recorded. Next is participant selection. The participants in our interviews were not chosen at random. They were chosen partially out of convenience, in all honesty, because Ms. Pollin was working with them directly during her internship, and this gave us easy access to be able to interview people. So because it was participants were not chosen at random, this could mean that the data does not represent the whole HR department, and just those individuals specifically. Next, Ms. Pollin and I are student researchers. We are by no means experts. We do not have extensive knowledge or experience in interview protocols or the subject matter. So there is a chance that the data collected could contain flaws. Lastly, quantitative data was not included in our research process. So that means some things were not measured within the HR department. So for instance, we don't know the average age of employees within the department size, or for instance, the percentage of employees that might feel dissatisfied with current communication, or the percentage of employees that do feel satisfied with communication practices. So those are some limitations to consider when looking at the results.
Next, we are going to talk about recommendations, and some of these recommendations can help fix some of these issues that we're seeing within the department. The first recommendation is to shift the culture. To shift the culture, what should be happening is employees should be accepted for who they are and how they communicate. So instead of the veteran getting in trouble for being direct, maybe when the employee is concerned about the way they speak, you could just accept the feedback and move on from that. The next recommendation is to create policies and procedures for every section. Policies and procedures provide instructions and guidance to employees, and they show how each section should be ran. And this would clear up confusion on how the section should be run. People would be able to refer back to the policies and procedures that are in place. Next is communicate through clear job descriptions. Employees should know what they need to be doing on a daily basis. This would help them be more productive and be better for their overall health. They would be less stressed because they wouldn't be focused on doing every job that they could do. Next is to provide communication training to leadership and employees. You could do 2 separate trainings, one training leaders on how to communicate with employees, and one training employees on how to communicate with customers and how to communicate with each other. This would help navigate the aspect of the lack of communications and the issues that come with that. And they would be able to learn more insights. And I think that it would help them, connect and build relationships and trust each other. If they can learn how to communicate, then each section would be able to run more smoothly.
Okay, so now we're just going to summarize everything that we have discussed. The whole purpose of a communication audit is to improve organizational communication. That was our goal for this project. The data collected for the project was retrieved through interviews and observations, specifically focusing on qualitative data, which gave us a lot of detailed information about employee experiences. Audit limitations include subjectivity, possible data errors, participants were not chosen randomly, and no quantitative data was used in the process. Some recurring themes that we noticed that the data suggests are cultural barriers, a lack of structure, insufficient job instructions, lacking policies and procedures, and misaligned management approach that does not appear to be meeting the needs of employees. And lastly, the recommendations include creating clear job descriptions, clear policies and procedures for every single department and every section within the HR department, and to focus on shifting the culture to embrace differences and to encourage communication and hopefully enhance trust. And lastly, communication training is highly suggested for all employees within the HR department and possibly within the whole organization.
Now we are going to discuss some key insights. Key insights that I had were how much culture impacts communication and in the work environment. I think that, when I become a leader or a manager, I'm going to have to learn each culture, and cultures, not just ethnicity or race, but cultures, like the veteran that we've discussed throughout this whole video. Another key insight that I had was how much the lack of policies and procedures can impact an organization. I've grew up in an environment, or, most of my work life was military, and there were so many policies and procedures. So if I ever needed to look up anything, I could refer back to that. And it's just, this situation is just a lot different. And I think it's complicated to create policies and procedures, but also it's important that there are those in place, because, not everybody communicates the same, not everybody is the same. And so, employees need more guidance. Everybody is just different. And the next insight is that I need to learn how to communicate so that I can, build better relationships, make connections, and be a better leader. I think that's important.
So my key insights would be one, I was surprised. I guess the communication audit really drew focus on all the factors that influence communication. I knew a lot of things influenced communication, but I didn't really, I guess, have a full understanding of that. So everything from organizational structure to the culture, assumptions, biases, management style, everything essentially impacts communication and impacts the organization, really. Impacts of communication and a lack of communication really impacts everything as well. And that was really highlighted by talking to the employees and their experiences, especially when the employees voiced their feelings of being overwhelmed or frustrated at work, and especially the feelings of feeling unsupported, just simply due to a lack of communication, and that really stood out to me. Communication errors affect all parts of the department and can flow throughout the entire organization, which really points back to systems theory. And kind of like what Ms. Paulin said, it has really made me consider my own communication technique and style and how I communicate with others. It makes me realize that I need to think about the other person that is receiving my message and think about their perspective and how they might interpret what I'm saying. And also think about how everything that I do and say will have an impact on somebody else. And lastly, it makes me think about, is my communication helping the situation, or is it making the situation worse, or not communicating? How is that impacting things? And I think that if every single person were to ask themselves this question, whether it's an employee or a manager or each department in the organization itself, I think communication would improve, which is always good for an organization. So that concludes our communication audit for CMST 330. We thank you so much for taking the time to watch our presentation. Have a wonderful day.
Bye now.
Bye.